Hi, I'm Carrie Dodd, manager of the Tehama County Farm Bureau. Did you know that we have trout farms in Tehama County? Join us today on our ag venture as we visit Mount Lassen Trout Farm at several of their different farm locations to learn about the life cycle from the egg to the full-grown adult fish and the process of getting them from the farm into creeks and ponds and to your table.
Welcome to Mount Lassen Trout Farms.
Hi, my name is Katie Harris and I'm the president and general manager of Mount Lassen Trout Farms. We're a small family-owned company that's been raising trout here in Tehama County since 1949. Every year we produce upwards of 1 million pounds of trout, making us the largest trout farm in California. The majority of our fish gets sold to recreational fishing lakes all throughout the state. Most of these lakes are in Southern California and the Bay Area. One of our largest customers is actually 5 minutes from Disneyland. About a quarter of our trout sales get sold into the seafood market, which go to restaurants, grocery stores, and farmers markets. Our farm is part of the aquaculture industry. So unlike agriculture, where things are grown on land, aquaculture encompasses things that are grown in the water. Other crops that are part of the aquaculture industry include different types of fish like bass, catfish, and then also shellfish and seaweed. Here at Mount Lassen Trout, we raise rainbow trout.
Spawning is the collection and fertilization of eggs for reproductive purposes.
So one question we get asked a lot is what's the difference between a trout and a salmon? One of the main differences is that trout will spawn multiple times throughout their life, whereas a salmon will only spawn one time and then that salmon dies. So these fish we will spawn multiple times. This is the second time that these fish have spawned, and we will spawn them again at least once or maybe even twice, depending on how old the fish is. These fish will spawn roughly once a year. So right now we're starting the fertilization process. This is milk that has been extracted from the males, and then we've added a solution in it that makes it to where the fertilization rate is higher than it would be in the wild. So we want as many of these eggs to get fertilized as we can. The milk in those bags, again, that comes from the male fish, and then they will be fertilized for 15 minutes, and then they'll take them out. Now the reason why we do it separately and not have the males contribute directly is we've actually found that we get more eggs fertilized if we do it on a separate day and actually hold that milk in oxygen and in temperature controlled environment, then we get a higher fertilization rate. So right now we're moving the eggs that are fertilized into trays where then we will actually submerge them in hot water. That water has to be 26.4 degrees Celsius. And the reason for that is that heat shock is what actually sterilizes the fish. So we have to, when we stock fish into lakes and ponds, the fish have to be sterile, meaning they cannot reproduce. So there's no way for one of these fish to breed with a wild fish. And we do that with this heat exposure. It doesn't hurt the eggs, it just makes them to where they can't reproduce. And then they go into a water bath that's nice and cold, and then from there they go into an egg incubator. Once the eggs get submerged in the hot water, then they get put into cold water. After they've been in the cold water, they come here, and these are egg incubators. So these eggs are basically starting to slowly grow, and then they'll eventually turn into sac fry. And these eggs will stay in these incubators for 33 days. The eggs are very slowly moving so they don't get suffocated on the bottom, and we do that with water. The water is slowly bubbling up and just slowly turning those eggs. And again, they'll stay here for 33 days until they go into one of our tanks.
Once the eggs are ready to be removed from the incubation units, we put them into hatching trays. This occurs at the beginning of the sac fry stage. The sac fry stage lasts for 19 to 23 days, and that's where that yolk sac becomes absorbed into the fish. Then the fish become what we call swim up fry, which means they start to swim up and can actually eat food at that point in time.
This is one of our hatcheries where we have all of our baby fish. Our baby fish go through a number of different life cycles even while they're babies. So you saw the eggs being fertilized. Well, this is what they look like after they have gone through the egg yolk stage. These babies right here they are 2 months old right now, and they're in what we call the fry stage. So these fish are just starting to eat solid food, and they will stay in here until they get to be about 2 inches long, and then we'll take them out to a larger hatchery. So this is our Lost Creek facility. It's the largest trout farm in California, and it's our largest as well. It's the largest because of the number of pounds we can produce here or grow. So at any given time, we could have up to 300,000 fish swimming here at this farm. What also makes this farm unique to other trout farms is that all of these raceways are earthen, meaning they're dirt. So what that does is it allows for a more natural environment. The fish have better fin quality and overall better fish health. It's also a little bit closer to what their natural environment would be. So as our babies grow, they go to different farms. So when they come up here, they will come into some nursery raceways. As they get bigger, then like fingerling size, maybe a little bit bigger, then they get stocked into these ponds here. There's 10 on this side and then 10 on the other side. And then as those fish get close to market size, which is a 1 to 2 pound trout, then they get moved into these middle ponds where then they will get ready to go to production, and then they will get sold. In order to maintain the quality of our fish and make sure our fish are safe, we have to keep them protected from predators. Predators like birds, bears, raccoons. Those types of predators like to come in and eat our fish. So in the background you can see that we have netting. That keeps those predators away from our fish, keeps them healthy. It also keeps them out of the fish feed, which is another thing predators like to get into. So we keep our feed protected and our fish protected as well. The great thing about this farm is we don't actually have to touch the fish. We can just move the fish with the water from one channel to another. Then they get pumped over to a raceway where we get ready to put them onto the truck. So it's a lot easier on the fish, and it's a lot easier on the guys that work here. So behind me is one of our fish pumps and also a fish grater. What it does is it pumps the fish onto a fish truck rather than having to net them, which is actually safer for both our employees and the fish. It puts less stress on them, and then we're also able to grade out smaller fish. So if the fish are too small, then they actually go back into the pond where they can grow and wait until they're market size before we sell them. One of the questions I get asked the most is, what do you feed your fish? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on the size of the fish and what the nutritional requirements are for the fish. So what we feed our baby fish is very different than what we feed our bigger fish. So behind me you can see there's lots of different sizes of tanks, and all of those tanks have different sizes of feed in them. So the smaller fish that are here will get smaller feed, the bigger fish will get bigger feed. People ask me all the time, why do you choose the farm locations that you do? And it's all centered around spring water. So behind me is the water that feeds our Lost Creek facility. All of our farms are fed by spring water, which is truly the lifeblood of our farms. So all of the water behind me feeds our Lost Creek facility. All this water comes out of the ground a couple miles up, and in between there and here there's 3 different powerhouses that's used to generate power. Well, the beauty of this is it also generates oxygen. So as you can see behind me, all of that water has bubbles in it. Those bubbles represent oxygen. All that oxygen then is going to go into our farm and into our fish. All of our farms are fed with spring water from around the base of Mount Lassen. The beauty of that is that we are considered non-consumptive users of the water. While our fish swim in it, we don't actually consume it and use it such that it can't be replenished. Once the water goes through our farms and is tested, then it goes out into the environment. It can be used for irrigation to grow additional crops. There are powerhouses that are using that water to generate power, and then it goes back into the watershed.
Thank you for joining us today as we learned about the rainbow trout at the Mount Lassen Trout Farm. We hope to see you on our next Ag Venture.